Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and in this video I'm going to be showing you all how you can safely, easily, and thankfully pretty quickly get yourself up and running if you have a compatible PlayStation 3 with full custom firmware and truly jailbreak your PlayStation 3 to get the absolute most you can out of this. This is all done thanks to the awesome team over at Team PS3 Exploit and BG Toolset, or PS3 Toolset from B. Gareville. Now before we fully get into this, I do just want to clarify a couple of things. The first one being, many people try to follow these videos if they have a jailbroken system and there's a new update. If your system is already jailbroken, meaning that it has a full custom firmware installed on it, you do not need to follow this video. I have another video showing how you can update from one custom firmware to another, and that way you retain your jailbreak. And that is what you should be doing if you wish to update, but you do not need to re-jailbreak your system if it has already been jailbroken. Secondly, you might notice if you're going to be watching this video pretty far out that I'm going to be showing on screen, and I might mention here firmware 4.88. That is because that is the current firmware version being used for this tutorial and what is out right now. However, the nice thing is, even with these new firmware updates, the process itself has not changed all too much because PS3 Toolset ends up getting updated. So that means if you're watching this in the future, and even if this video is older, but it shows like 4.89 or 4.90 in the title and description and thumbnail, that means that the software being used here has all been updated. So all the steps are really going to be the same, it's just going to be a different version number and maybe a different custom firmware that you need to install. So great, now that we have those two out of the way, let's hammer out the prerequisites. First of all, what does this work on? This will work on every single Phat retail PlayStation 3. If you have one that looks like this, congratulations, you'll be able to jailbreak it and run a full custom firmware. If you have a PS3 Slim, meaning a console that looks like this, you might be able to jailbreak it. I'm going to have some models up on screen that will show which ones you can jailbreak, which ones you cannot jailbreak, and which ones you might be able to jailbreak. If you have any confusion on there, or let's say you're not sure where to look, you can always look on the back of your PlayStation 3 console and see which model it is. However, that might not be 100% accurate, especially if you have a used system that might have been case swapped. So if you follow along with this, don't worry, I'm going to show you all how you can for sure be able to tell if your PS3 Slim will work or not. It's pretty safe and easy to do. Lastly, if you have one of these models, a PS3 Super Slim, you cannot jailbreak it with a full custom firmware, meaning that this video will not work for you. However, if you're still wanting to have some fun with that system, I would highly recommend using PS3 HIN, and that includes for people who have a non-compatible PlayStation 3 Slim. PS3 HIN, it's not the same as a full custom firmware, but it gets the job done pretty well for what I would say 90% of users want to use a custom firmware for. So don't sleep on it, definitely give it a shot, and in some ways I like it even more. It's a little more interesting to me. So either way, at this point, you might want to continue on, and we're even going to check and see if the PS3 that you're using is compatible for this. So we're going to need a few prerequisites here. First of all, we will need our PlayStation 3 console in front of us right here, up and running and working. We are going to need to connect it to the internet. We also need a USB flash drive, and it would be recommended to have a Windows-based PC. That's what I'm going to be using for this. So now let's go over and check our firmware version to make sure that the current firmware on our PS3 will work. So what you can do is navigate over to Settings, go over to System Settings, and inside of System Settings, scroll all the way down to System Information. This is where you need to look for the system software and the version number. As you can see, my current system software version, otherwise known as the firmware, is running firmware 4.88. Now looking at the PS3 Exploit site, you can come over here and see at the current time of recording this, my console is compatible with this latest firmware, and the PS3 Toolset works on firmwares 4.80 and higher. So if you're on 4.80 or something higher, as long as it is compatible, you can continue on with this. If you're on a lower firmware, you're going to have to update to at least firmware 4.80. And if you're on a higher firmware which is not compatible, well, you might just need to wait for PS3 Toolset to update and be compatible with your current firmware. And if and when that happens, I will be updating the video metadata as I have explained before. So with that, I know that my console is a compatible console. It is a Phat system. It is running the firmware that works on here. So we're going to have to do a few things. First of all, we need to come over to the date and time settings, make sure you are connected to the internet, come down to set automatically. You want to set that to on, and for date and time, you're going to want to set this via internet. And this is important because you have to have an accurate time to use PS3 Toolset. So now with that set, we need to go back and we really should make a second profile for this. We're only going to be using this for jailbreaking, and we're just going to do this so we can have a clean setup to run PS3 Toolset under. To do this, go over to create new user, and we can call this whichever we want to. I'm just gonna call this JB. It really doesn't matter all that much, just for jailbreak, so I know what this is for. Go into here, and once you create the new user, you want to sign in to that new user account that you've created. Perfect, that's exactly what we need to do. So we're going to stay signed into this second profile the entire time. Now that we have that set up, you're going to want to go over to your internet browser and open up the browser. We're going to want to press the triangle button, and we need to change a few options here. First of all, you need to go over to Tools. You'll need to go to Cookies and allow cookies. Press triangle yet again, go over to Tools. Make sure that JavaScript is on. Press triangle yet again, go to Tools, go to Homepage, and we want to use a blank homepage. Press OK. And lastly, we want to clear out all of our browser history here. So I'm going to press triangle, go to Tools, and we're going to delete our cookies. We're going to delete the search history. We're going to delete cache. And finally, we're going to delete authentication information. And we can now close out of the browser. And at this point, we should have a nice clean browser yet again, signed in under your jailbreaking profile right here, the temporary one that we are making. So now at this point, we can go to the internet browser, open it up. Now press either the start button or you can do triangle, file, address entry. And the website we have to go to is the PS3 exploit site. It is spelled exactly like this. You have to remove the E from exploit. It's spelled exactly like this, and if you're confused at all, you can find this linked down below in the description of this video. Once you have that all dialed in, press start or enter, and let the website load. Now once you're over here, you're going to want to go over to the top menu, go over to the left, look for BG Toolset, and go down to main site, and press the X button to open up BG Toolset. If you get this prompt here, do you want to run the plugin? You always say yes to this. You have to run this here. So press yes and wait. It's going to do some initial setup here. Just let it do its own thing. You can see this in the top right corner of the window. And there we go. After a bit, your system should beep and you should get exploit initialization complete and everything should be good to go. Now while we're here, you should also press the select button and hit add to bookmarks for PS3 Toolset. So that way, whenever we open up the browser, we can just press select and go to PS3 Toolset easily. Now when you're here, you just need to go over to Flash Memory Manager and press X on this to open up this tab. Wait a few moments and take a look at this. This is what you should be seeing. Now, it might look a little bit confusing right here, but this is pretty easy to read. You really just want to pay attention to where it says CFW compatible PS3. And if there's a green check, that means that your PS3 is compatible and you can continue on with the rest of this tutorial. Congratulations. If you get a red X on there, or you cannot load up flash memory patch, for example, if it's just showing that you're not able to continue on, and it should be pretty obvious, again, you're going to have a red X, that means that your console is not compatible and you will not be able to continue with this video. If you have a PS3 Slim which is incompatible, or if you have a PS3 Super Slim. Now, as I said earlier, if you have one of those incompatible systems, you can easily follow along with PS3 Hen. I have a video covering that, and it's a pretty great solution for those systems that aren't compatible with a full custom firmware. But either way, if you want a full custom firmware, you can now continue on, and you now know that your system can handle that. So now that we have that verified, we can close out of the browser. We're now going to move over to our PC with a USB flash drive. Great, so we're over at our PC, we have our USB drive plugged in here, and for this, you really don't need that much storage, like a 1 GB USB drive is going to be more than enough, but make sure you have your USB drive plugged in, and if you're using Windows, you're going to want to right-click, format your drive, and it needs to be FAT32. It cannot be NTFS, it cannot be exFAT, it has to be FAT32. Default allocation size is fine, quick format is fine, and just keep in mind that this is going to delete any data you care about from this USB drive. So if there's any data you care about, you need to back it up now, and then you need to wipe the USB drive. So once you have that all set up, we can hit start, hit OK, and that's all going to be formatted. Awesome, that's exactly what we need. Now, what if you're not able to format with FAT32? Like, let's say you have a drive that this is not showing up because it's too big, or you try the next steps on your PS3 and it's not recognizing. Well, that's a pretty common issue that people have, and I'm going to show you another way to format. And this second way of formatting, you should have more luck with your USB drive working on your console. For this, I'll be using an application called Rufus, and this is pretty easy to use. It looks pretty robust for what it is, and it's pretty powerful, but we're just going to make simple use of it here. You can go to the link down below in the description to download this, and just download the Rufus portable build. Once you have Rufus here, go ahead, open it up. If it asks to make changes, you'll want to say yes. And if it asks for updates, this is really up to you. I don't mind. So here we go. First of all, you have to pick your USB drive. So I know this is my 16 GB flash drive. Next up, for boot selection, you need to click non-bootable. And this is very important here. You have to select MBR and you have to select FAT32. These two have to be selected together, and they are the most important. You have to have a FAT32 USB drive, and it has to be MBR. If it is GPT, it will not be recognized by your console, so it must be MBR. Now that you have that all set up, again, same issue applies here. Any data you care about, you must back up, and once you're ready to wipe it, you can hit start, hit OK, and wait a few moments. Excellent, so now that's been formatted without any issue. Now that our drive has been formatted, we can right-click, eject our USB drive, and take it back over to the PS3. Over at the PlayStation 3, plug in your USB drive and make sure it is recognized. To do this, you can go over to anything like music, photos, videos. If you see a USB device showing up, that means that your USB drive has been formatted and set up properly, which is great. So now with all that set up, we can go to our internet browser, and we need to load up the PS3 Toolset. So again, press select and load this up directly like I showed you all before. Always say yes to running this plugin, and wait. Now once everything's all good, you want to go over to your flash memory manager and open that up. Now that this has all been loaded up here, you're going to want to navigate over to flash memory, press the X button, and you're going to want to select Save Flash Memory Backup. This is an incredibly important step and is required in case anything goes wrong with your PS3 during this process. You can always restore this using a hardware flasher. So press X over Save Flash Memory Backup. It's going to bring up this menu right here, and you're going to want to look for where your USB is. So you might see some like dev USB and a few numbers. That is your USB drive. So you can just press X on that and press save. And now wait a few moments. I have a 16 megabyte NOR flash, so it shouldn't take too long. If you have something bigger like a NAND system, it will take much longer. Now as you can see, that only took 7 seconds. Awesome. We now need to take this back over to our computer and verify that this is a good system dump. So close out of this and close out of the browser yet again. Now let's take our USB drive and move over to the computer. With your USB drive plugged into your PC, go over to the drive, and you should see a file right here, which is dump.hex. If you cannot see the file name extensions for these, this is going to be important as well too. If you're using Windows, you can click on View and enable file name extensions, because you're going to see everything looks a little bit different with it disabled versus enabled. Now, you might also have, if you use Rufus, some auto runs right here. You can delete these as well too. It's totally up to you. Those aren't needed, but this dump.hex is very important right here. So this is going to be our original one. What we should do is we should rename this already to dump_original.hex, and you're going to need to back this up somewhere. So of course, copy and paste it somewhere onto your PC, for example. And if you want to back this up to like cloud storage or anywhere else, I mean, that's going to be more than welcome. Again, this is per console, it is specific for every system, and in case anything goes wrong with this process, you can use a hardware flasher to use this file right here to restore. But we also need to make sure that this file is all clean and all good and all ready to go. So if we have that on hand, what we can do is verify this dump. To do this, look for the link down below in the description to Pi PS3 Tools, and we're going to download a few things here. First of all, this is going to bring you to the little Ballup Pi PS3 Tools GitHub page, and you're going to want to look for a file like this, which is the Pi PS3 Checker standalone package. It's a zip file. You can click on this, and then at this page, you can click on download. And you want to download this zip file somewhere you can easily access it. Next up, we also need a custom firmware of some kind, and this is where it's going to get, a little bit creative, maybe even a little bit tricky here, because there is a PS3 Jailbreak custom firmware and PS3 HIN section on one of my favorite sites, PSX Place, which I highly recommend, and this has a lot of posts for custom firmware. Now, typically you might see a page like this, which covers the different custom firmwares that you can utilize, which is out for specific firmwares when they drop, or you might have a page like this dedicated to a specific custom firmware. So I might put like 1 or 2 links down below in the description, because these are always changing and there's always firmwares that are being added no matter which version is out there. Now, if anybody might be confused, typically I do like to recommend Rebug custom firmwares. Those are my favorite ones. Technically, there hasn't been a Rebug firmware for the last 1 or 2 firmware revisions, so if you can't go with Rebug, you're going to want to get something that has the Cobra payload in it, and it's going to be annotated with Cobra. You're going to see that there. Currently at the moment, while I'm recording this for firmware 4.88, the only custom firmware out is Evonat custom firmware, which seems to be pretty solid and has Cobra in it, so that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now, you'll just need to go to whichever page has the custom firmware you are looking for. The cool thing is these custom firmwares also most of the time have tons and tons of release notes with them, so you can really just read through these and see what is available on here and what makes these so awesome compared to one another. However, when you decide to download a custom firmware that you stick to, you're going to need to look for the downloads, of course. So first of all, if you have a CEX firmware, that's really what you want right now. That is a retail system firmware. So I'm going to download the Evonat 4.88 Cobra 8.3 CEX version. All of them are going to download a little bit differently, but you can download this using something such as Mega or whichever service the uploader has chosen. You might also see other variants here, and this is for systems that have some other issues. So no BD is, for example, for a system that has no Blu-ray drive or a broken Blu-ray drive. No BT, same thing, for a system that has no Bluetooth module or a broken Bluetooth module. A lot of people who follow this tutorial have that issue as well too. So if you have a broken Blu-ray drive or a broken Bluetooth dongle that's preventing you from installing a custom firmware, you're going to need a specific variant for the issue that your system is demonstrating. Now, we've been downloading a lot of archive files, and if you don't have anything to extract them, you could always use something such as 7-zip, which is free and pretty easy to use. The last thing we're going to download is some Homebrew as well too, and for my first piece of Homebrew, I usually like to install Multiman. It's a really great backup loader that I enjoy using, so this is going to be linked down below in the description, and to download Multiman, you can just click on Multiman, go down here, and you can download Multiman Base. Now, even though this is for an older version, 4.85, this will still work just fine on later firmware versions. So you can just click on download. So here with all your downloads, you should have a few things. You should have your system dump, you should have Pi PS3 Checker, you should have a custom firmware of your choice, and you should have a piece of Homebrew of your choice. Now, the first thing we need to do is really check this dump file. So for this, you can right-click on Pi PS3 Checker and use 7-zip, for example, to extract it into its own folder. When you open up the folder, you can come in here, and there's going to be a bat file, which is drag and drop your dump here. Now, don't just move this, we're just going to make a copy of it. So copy your dump original and paste it in here. Now grab your dump_original.hex file and drop it onto this bat file, the file that says drag and drop your dump here. You're just going to drop it here and release. Now you should have just had something like this that ran on your system that's going to bring up this black screen here, this command prompt window. And this is what we're looking for. We're looking for number of dangers and number of warnings. Now this is optimal at this point. If we have all green here, if we have no dangers and no warnings, we are all good to continue. That is a good dump at this point. We are all clear. If you have any dangers or warnings, at this point I've seen people usually resolve this by reinstalling an official firmware update on their system, which you can do through recovery mode. That's not necessarily going to be covered right here, but it's pretty simple to do. However, if you have zero dangers, zero warnings, you're all clean, you don't really have anything to worry about, you're good to go at this point. So you can press N if you don't want to keep your log, and you're all good to go there. Now that our system flash has been dumped and verified to be clean, we are all good to continue. Grab your custom firmware, and just like before, you can right-click the archive it comes in and extract it into its own folder. When you open this up here, it might look a little bit different depending on what you are looking at, and this one even has a README. Now this is the structure the file needs to be in, whichever custom firmware you're using. It has to be in a PS3 folder, an update folder, and it has to look like this, PS3 updat.pup. And if it's anything different, it has to be renamed. And that's why having the file name extensions is super important right here, so you do need that enabled. Now at this point, we can copy this over to our USB drive. So once you get your update file, you can copy this and go to your USB drive, and whichever way you're going to be doing it here, even if you have a firmware that doesn't have that folder structure built, we can do it manually. So you can right click, new, PS3. That's going to be our folder name, all uppercase, one word. Go into the PS3 folder, create a new folder, call it update. All uppercase, all one word. And inside the update folder, we need to paste in that PS3 updat.pup file. Yet again, if it is not named PS3 updat.pup, you have to rename it. And make sure you have file name extensions enabled, because that can mess up many people as well too. Now with that all copied over, you all might have also noticed something here on the download page wherever you get your custom firmware from called a MD5, which is just this random series of numbers and letters, and it's just kind of some gibberish here. Well, that is important because we need that to verify the actual firmware that we have downloaded to make sure it is all clean and it's not corrupted. So you can get it either from the download page or your custom firmware download might already have it. This one, for example, EvoNat, if we go in here, there is a md5.txt file, and this one has the md5 hash in here. So what you can do is you can copy out this md5 hash wherever you're getting it from, and we're going to verify this on our USB drive. I like to use this website here, Online MD5, so you can either drag and drop the file from your USB drive or navigate to it. I'm choosing to navigate, so you can go to your USB drive, PS3 update, PS3 updat.pup, and let it search. And let it compare. In the compare with, you can actually paste in your MD5 hash and give it a few more seconds. And there we go. Once the file checksum comes up, if this doesn't happen, you can even click on compare, and if you get a green check mark, that means that you have successfully downloaded your custom firmware without any issues, and you've copied it over, it's not corrupted, it's all good to go. If for whatever reason this does not match, sometimes if you put a space in here, that can screw things up. Otherwise, if it's a completely different set of numbers and letters, you might not have grabbed the actual update file, you might have grabbed the archive, or alternatively, you might have a corrupted download, in which at that point you should delete the files, you should re-download them, re-extract them, copy them back over, and check them again. This has to be matching right here, or else you're going to have a corrupted custom firmware, which you do not want. Now for our last thing, we need this piece of Homebrew. So for this, we can go back over to our USB drive, and Homebrew is very easy to copy over. It's in a package file format, .pkg. You'll just want to copy and paste this to the root of the USB drive, just outside of the PS3 folder. So your flash drive should look a little something like this. You should have your PS3 folder with the update folder inside of it, and the PS3 updat file here, PS3 updat.pup. You should also have your original dump.hex file, and you should have whichever Homebrew you want to install right here. Now with all of that done, we can come back over, right click, eject our USB drive, and go back over to the PlayStation 3 with the drive in hand. Once we're back over at the PS3, plug in your USB drive yet again, check your XMB like photo, music, video, make sure the device is showing up, which mine is. Now open up your internet browser, and once it loads up, you're going to want to press the select button, go down to PS3 Toolset, and open it up. You always want to press yes to running this plugin. It has to run. It's very important that it does. So once this loads and it initializes, we're all good there. You can go over to Flash Memory Manager and press the X button. And once everything shows up here, we're now going to begin the patching process. This is going to allow your system to install a custom firmware file. And this is why we needed to make a dump of our system prior, and we needed to verify it. So if you're at this point, you've already dumped your system flash, you verified it, it's all clean, you should be good to go. When we begin this process, you need to leave your system alone. You cannot lose power to the system. You just have to leave it be and let it do its thing. So once you come over here, go down to Flash Memory Patch, press X, and you can go to Load Patch via HTTPS. Press the X button and wait. And there we go. So your system should now have the appropriate patch that it needs. You can press the close button on here. Now that that's all been verified and in memory, you can press X on Flash Memory Patch yet again. Go down to Apply Loaded Patch, and yet again, this is the very important step right here, that you cannot lose power, you can't mess around with your system. Just once we start this right here, just put down your controller and leave it alone. So at this point, read the warning, make sure you understand it, and once you understand it, you can continue on. Now at this point here, it might take a few seconds or a few minutes. If you have an older Phat model PS3, one of the originals with a NAND, it should only take you a few seconds to perform the actual patching. If you have a newer model, so a later Phat PS3 or a PS3 Slim, it's probably going to take a few minutes. Just let it do its thing, wait, don't touch it. And here we go. Once it says everything is applied and we can reboot our system, well, that's exactly what we need to do. As you can see, my console took almost 3 minutes to patch, so that's how it should look. You can press close and close out of the browser, and just like it said on screen, we now need to reboot the entire console. So to do this, hold down the PlayStation button on your controller and turn off the system, then turn it back on. Now once your console reboots, it doesn't really matter which profile we use here, but you can still use the jailbreak profile for the remainder of this. Now once we're over here, your USB drive should not have gone anywhere, it should still be plugged in and recognized. If so, you'll need to go over to Settings, System Update, Update via Storage Media, and your custom firmware should be showing up. Keep in mind, you have to pick a custom firmware which is at minimum the same firmware version that you are currently running on your system. So for example, if you have installed 4.88 on your system and you're trying to install a 4.86 custom firmware, that's not going to work. You need at minimum 4.88 custom firmware. So now that we have that ironed out, we can press OK, go ahead and wait. And now we can agree to the licensing terms here, go down to Start, and let this process begin. It's going to copy over the update and reboot the system. So once you're at the system update screen, you can just follow the instructions where it says press the PlayStation button to use the controller, and now let it install. This is just going to take a few minutes, and it should reboot once it is completed. Alright, so once your system starts back up here, I actually really don't even need the jailbreak profile, so I'll get into my normal one here. And at this point, as you can see, your system should look a little bit different because under the game column, you're going to have a couple of new things. You're going to have your app home PS3 game, and you're going to have the package manager, which that is incredibly important. So we still need our USB drive for a little bit longer because congratulations, you are now running custom firmware on your system. but you now need some of that sweet, sweet homebrew. If you're wanting any other homebrew aside from Multiman, you can still go to Brewology, go over to the homebrew section, and just check out all the awesome stuff that is on here. There might be different things depending on what you're wanting, and I think there's a little bit of something for everybody here, but you might just want to check and see what's available. Either way, we do have some homebrew on our USB drive, so you can make sure the USB drive is plugged in and recognized. Go to your package manager, install package files, standard, and anything that's on the root of that USB drive should be showing up here. So to install any of these pieces of homebrew, you just press the X button and you wait for it to install. Again, this first piece of homebrew that I am using here is Multiman, so that's typically what I like to install to get a system initialized. Now that we have that, we can go back. We can now remove that USB drive because we don't need any of the content anymore, and you can hopefully load up your first piece of homebrew by just pressing the X button here and loading it up. Now when Multiman loads up for you, it should look a little something like this, and I've plugged in another USB drive I have which already has a game on there, so if you want a full demonstration and really usage and tutorial over Multiman, I do have a full video covering that goes into most of what people are wanting there. But one of the first things I'd recommend, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm going to do. I recommend go over to your settings, scroll all the way down, and we're going to be looking for the music setting. Theme audio, I'd recommend disabling that. That just helps with a few different things, such as performance and just annoying you a little less when the music is playing in the background. But either way, if you have a game either on your internal drive or on an external drive, it's pretty simple. I'll show you as a demonstration here. You can just go to this. As you can see, it is on my USB drive as shown right there. This is a backup that I made from a disk, popped onto my USB drive. You can just press the X button and wait. Your system should come back to the XMB. If Multiman changes names to MMCM, that is completely normal and expected. That just means you're on a Cobra enabled custom firmware. But you're going to notice there's a disk icon right here, and I can assure you there's no disk in my drive, but this has been mounted from Multiman, and this game is going to run off of my USB drive. So to run this, I'm just going to press the X button to boot it up. I can assure you all the game is going to run, but I did not install the game data to this system prior since I had wiped it, so I just need to wait for this install to finish. Alright, so here we go. We finally have the game up and running after an install. I mean, this is just the initial cutscene here, but as you can see, I mean, if I hit the XMB, press the PlayStation button, I mean, it's showing up there just fine. We still have App Home, we still have the package manager, and it is mounted as a disc, so this is all working just fine, or well, I guess as good as Deadly Premonition is going to be able to. Just like any other game, we can press the PlayStation button, go over to Quit Game, and yes, to quit out. So there we go, you all. That is all there is to it, and it was about as simple as that. Yet again, you just need your PlayStation 3, an internet connection, a USB drive, and some time, and you got yourself a pretty awesome PS3 that you'll be able to really fully take advantage of thanks to the power of custom firmware. And this is just the beginning. Of course, you can have fun backing up your games and such using Multiman and really preserving all that awesomeness. You can even really fully tweak the system and, you know, play around with fan speeds and really maximize the life of it with something awesome such as Webman Mod. And there's just so many other really cool things that you can do. This isn't even touching the emulation and such. I would like to give a big thank you and shout out to the PS3 exploit team. I really do try and give a big thank you and shout out at the end of these videos, and I truly do mean it here. Because without them, the PS3 really wouldn't have progressed in the last few years as much as it really has. Thanks to them, we've been able to do all of our custom firmware installations and patching thanks to the web browser going through there, as opposed to having to use a hardware flasher to open up the system, downgrade it, and do all that other fun stuff. We've had HAN, we have PS3 HIN, and there's just so much great stuff that has really come from the team, and I do look forward to seeing what more will come of them from here. Now, I also do always say, if you want to show your support, they do have donations available, which are shown right here on their main page, or even on the PS3 Toolset site for B. Garavell right here, who has been responsible for creating and working on PS3 Toolset. I do recommend donations if you are wanting to financially support the PS3 exploit team, because think about it like this. You probably didn't have to buy a hardware flasher, you didn't have to send off your PS3 somewhere to get downgraded, so you end up saving that money. Even if you take a portion of that money and donate it to PS3 Exploit Team, it's going to help you with future support, it's going to help the community with future support as well too, and even current support if others are going to be utilizing this service. The PS3 Exploit Team does a ton of awesome work, they really are volunteering their time here, and I truly do thank them for what they've done. Anyways, that is about it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, I hope it helped out, and I truly hope that it got your PS3 running custom firmware. If it did help you out in any way or you enjoyed it, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone.